guys and welcome to Super 6-1. Today we're taking an initial look at my new Fanatec setup. Now this is by no means a full review, I have only had the equipment for a few days, but today we're just going to discuss my experience with ordering the product, receiving it, and my first hands-on experience. Now as some of you guys may know if you've watched previous videos, I've been using Logitech equipment for the last few years. I used a G29 wheel for several years, and more recently a G29 with the MVH Studios F1 mod. Now whilst I really do recommend the G29 and the F1 mod if you're new to sim racing or you've just got a tighter budget, it is great equipment and it does really get the job done. I've been looking at upgrading for quite some time. I've been looking at different products on the market and trying to weigh up the best thing I can get for my budget. And in the end, I settled on Fanatec with the setup you see in front of me. I went for the CSL Elite pedals without the load cell for now. The load cell pedal might be something I get in the future. This is the basic brake and accelerator setup that you use in an F1 car. The Clubsport V2.5 wheelbase, now I'll discuss that a little bit later on, and I went for the Formula V2 wheel. Now I had been looking at the CSL Elite bundle you can get, which comes in a little bit cheaper than this, but I was thinking that if I got that, I'd end up wanting to upgrade again and probably end up buying the equipment you see in front of me. So I decided to go for this equipment now and save myself spending more money down the line. That's why I went for the V2 base. Whilst apparently it is very similar to the CSL base, it is made of stronger materials and it does have about 2 Newton meters of extra strength. So I thought, well, if I'm going to upgrade, I might as well do the best I can for my current situation. Now the reason I didn't go for direct drive, apart from the cost factor, is I am still running this on a Playseat Challenge setup. And I think using direct drive on a Playseat Challenge setup might make things a little bit sketchy. Now, some people had told me that running the Clubsport V25 on this, being a powerful belt-fed base, might actually make things a little bit shaky. And to be honest with you, it's actually perfect. The only modification I have done, I have bought the 3D printed part that mounts onto the Playseat Challenge, which I'll leave linked in the description below, which basically makes the drive column which you mount your wheel on a little bit more rigid and nice and stiff. And you'll see from the gameplay here, there is a little bit of play. I mean, if I wobble it in front of myself, you can see it move a little bit, but when you're driving and actually concentrating on driving, you do not notice any movement at all. So I'm actually really pleased with the setup running on the Playseat Challenge. So if you are looking at this wheelbase and you have a Playseat Challenge and you're thinking it might not work, I can tell you from first-hand experience it works perfectly fine. So my first hands-on experience, I ordered this less than a week ago and it arrived within 3 days. So I had heard that they had some delays going on the website. I've been checking things out, but they said, you know, some of these parts weren't going to be in stock till August, and then suddenly one day the Formula V2 wheel was in stock there and then. So I ordered, I put the 3 together as a bundle in my basket and ordered it, and within 3 days it arrived from Germany to the UK. So I was actually really pleased with that. I know they've had backlogs and issues because of all this COVID situation, but it seems at the moment, when things are in stock at least, when you order them, you are receiving them as expected on time. The delivery was great, as you can see from this packaging. Everything arrives in brilliant packaging, not only the kind of transport box, but the actual Fanatec packaging itself. Everything is in these nicely foam packaged. Everything came in perfect condition, and the packaging, as you can see, is actually really cool. You've got all those kind of motifs and little slogans on things as you open it up, which I think kind of adds to the experience, especially when you are buying a more high-end product like this. Now, when I first got my hands on the wheel, it's exactly as I expected. It is really high quality, very rigid, very strong in terms of the build quality with the carbon fiber, the Alcantara grips. All the buttons have good tactile feedback. The paddles, the shifter paddles, they do the job at the moment. Obviously, I'm coming from having the magnetic shifters on the G29, which had a little bit more kind of tactile response, if you like, a bit more of a click to them. These kind of go back to just being a bit more, feeling like a bit of a button, but they are bringing out the magnetic shifter system in Q3 of this year, apparently, for £100. But now I've put about 10 hours into using this and been using the paddles, I haven't actually missed having the magnetic shifters. I've not done any shifting by mistake. All my gear changes have been, as I expected, and when I've not kind of found myself making any mistakes because I haven't got as much tactile feedback on the paddles. So far everything has been as I expected. Now, taking the jump from a G29 to a Clubsport V25 in terms of force feedback is incredible. So don't quote me on this, but I think this has got nearly about 10 times more force feedback strength than the G29. Now currently I have the force feedback in the Fanatec settings at around 75 to 80%. For me, I found that's a good balance between making it very enjoyable and drivable, but also not making you any slower on the track. Some people do really crank down the force feedback settings to make you a little bit quicker, but I find that kind of counterintuitive if you've gone out and bought a more expensive high-end drive base like this to have a more realistic experience. I have tried it 100% a few times for a laugh. I cranked it right up to 100 on the Fanatec settings and in F1 2020 as well, and that was quite an experience. It is amazing how powerful this belt-fed base could be. I've spoke to some people and read comments from people who have direct drive wheels, and they've actually said the difference between this and a DD1 and DD2 isn't that much in terms of the actual force feedback. If you really have this cranked up, it can be a very similar experience. Now, if you're someone like me who does regular go-karting, you will know that karting really builds up your strength in your arms. When you first start, you'll come off the track after half an hour, and your arms will really be aching. So if you do a lot of go-karting and stuff, or a lot of real motorsport, having this on a high force feedback setting probably isn't too much of a problem, and it is actually a little bit of a good experience and good practice for your arms to keep building up that strength, especially during these times when you might not be able to get onto track as much as you would like. So far my experience with this has all been very, very positive. I've had no real issues with the delivery times, no issues with the product itself. The only slight issue I could have said I've had, which is maybe a little bit nitpicking, is with the software. It isn't that obvious to someone like me who has never had this equipment before. I was aware obviously you're going to need drivers and software to run this on a computer. As to where to find them, I went to the Fanatec website. They have a download section, but there isn't just something you can download. Like with Logitech, you can download the Logitech peripheral software, and that sorts out your wheel and things. You have to go in and download individual drivers for the particular wheel you have, the particular base you have, the particular pedals you have, which seems simple enough. But then you also then have another program called Fanalab, which I downloaded, which I thought was the program I needed to go through and configure all my settings. But when you actually download the drivers, that installs another program which I hadn't even noticed on my desktop, because it had the Fanalab and this Fanatec software program both there with a very similar logo, just in two different colours. I hadn't even noticed it yet. And I had a little bit of an issue at first trying to make sure that the drivers are installed in the right order, because you have to install the driver ones before you physically install the wheel onto the base, and then install the software drivers for the wheel, if that makes sense. So it really isn't an issue at all if if you know what you're doing. I spoke to somebody on one of the Facebook forums and they talked me through it pretty quickly, because at first I was like, I've downloaded the drivers, I've got the Fanlab program, it's recognised it all there, but it's not corresponding as I'm asking it to. But 10 minutes later I had it all working perfectly. So far my experience with all of this has been really good. Now, to answer a question I see a lot of people discussing online when talking about upgrading hardware is, does it make you a faster driver? Now, I can't say it makes you a faster driver, but I would say it makes you a more aware driver, which in turn will eventually make you faster. Now, what I mean by this, of course, the force feedback through the belt-driven system, even the vibration you have in the grips of the wheel itself, all of this adds more immersion and gives you more kind of awareness of how the vehicle is handling. And through time and experience and practice using this wheel and being able to understand how the vehicle is handling a lot more, you will in turn become a much faster driver. So that about wraps up today's video. I won't go into too much more detail to begin with. As I said, this is only my first initial feedback and thoughts using this kit. If you do have any further questions, leave them down in the comments below. I'll be sure to answer them in a full review in a few weeks' time. And in the meantime, I'll be uploading more gameplay videos like the ones you're seeing here, where I'm just racing on F1 2020 and Assetto Corsa Competizione, so you can get more of an idea of what it's like using this kit. So, thanks for watching, guys. If you are new here, don't forget to leave a like, and if you do want to subscribe to see more of this stuff, feel free to. And as I said, if you have any further questions, leave those in the comments below.